Hey, welcome to the Roundtable. This is Jeff here with co-host Chip. He's on one side or the other. I always get confused. He might be next to the lemon tree over here. I'm not really sure. We are here tonight with two great guests. I think you guys all know who they are. We've got Sam I Am over here, and we've got Crypto Eddie with us tonight. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Great.
Awesome. We've got Man, this is really awesome. We had you guys on the show before. It blew up. People love you guys. We love having you here. We have a lot of great things to talk about. I think, the crypto space and the blockchain space is really blowing up. I talked a lot about the central bank digital currencies. Today, I talked about the flippening, moving from fiat over to crypto. Tonight, we're going to get into Coil. I also want to touch a little bit on the World Economic Forum. They're talking about a Bill of Rights, a blockchain Bill of Rights, and a lot of other great topics tonight. And guess what? We're going to start right now.
And now, the Roundtable with Jeff and Chip on the Chain.
Hey everybody, welcome back to On the Chain, On the Chain, On the Chain. This is the Roundtable. I am Chip, and we are pretty excited tonight. I got to tell you, anything new in the world? I mean, it seems like there's this whole thing's been burning down lately, but things are trying to gradually open back up, and I just thought we'd get into some topics. The first one I wanted to talk about was this Coil, right? So what do you guys think about, I wanted to, Sam, what are your thoughts about this Coil plugin that's now for WordPress? They've put it out into the world.
I think that's going to be huge. Two things that really caught my attention. One was the whole tip-bot migration to Uphold, which, I wasn't happy about because now it's another thing that's KYC AML'd, whereas before it wasn't. But when I went in to set it up and saw what they had done, basically we were chatting about this a little bit before we started. I went in, you go in and create a card that I called XRP Tipbot, and you then pull the payment pointer for that card, and then you give that to Coil, and they'll start streaming your Coil micropayments to you. But the cool thing about it is you can create a card for any of their assets: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Digibyte. I don't know what all they have, but any of those, you can create a payment. You can create a card, pull the payment pointer, and start streaming your crypto. So if I want to add one of these other alts to my kind of collection of cryptocurrencies, I can do that by just switching the payment pointer out for a little while and then switch it back to XRP or whatever. It's really clever. And the thing that kind of popped into my mind is the only thing that's missing, for somebody like me, is direct deposit, where I can set that up to direct deposit into Uphold and maybe some bill pay functionality. And then I've got a bank,
It's very close, and Uphold is getting very, very close. What do you think, Crypto Eddie?
Yeah, I think I agree with Sam. It's the KYC thing is always, you feel like you've taken that one more step under the umbrella that doesn't allow for. Yeah, that's right, Chip.
Come under our eye. We'll watch you.
Don't worry.
Yeah. But the flexibility of being able to go in and out of different assets that you want to be paid in and monetized in is just unbelievable in terms of flexibility. It's great.
Yeah. Now their fees and exchange rates are too high and terrible, but hopefully with a little competition. So like I sent out a tweet about that, and then I tagged Catherine Coley and said, hey, why don't you guys have a gateway set up for the ILP? So hopefully, a little competition there will help.
Well, I got to tell you, I feel really bad for the people in New York. There's a lot of great creators that are on Coil and in Cinnamon. And it's like, what are they going to do? They really got kind of left in the cold because, New York has like this whole mafia shakedown. You got to have the bit license, and
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you think about that whole thing? I mean, it's kind of sad. What are they going to do? I guess someone suggested they could use Zum, right? They could put it, I think there's a pointer you could put the Zum maybe.
I don't know. Haven't heard
I
that.
hope so. That would be one solution.
Because I mean, in Florida too, we're locked out of things like we can't use Binance US, like we're still prohibited. So you still have all this weird stuff going on. But that was the nice thing about the whole tip bot is that, it's just like a little stash over there. It's like a little kind of a hidden thing. You can only move 1,000 out at a time. So if something was nefariously happen, you kind of keep an eye on it, right? But then the Netherlands came out and they passed this little these regulations. And they said, "Don't worry, you have 6 months. Figure it out." 6 months goes by pretty fast.
Ah, right. I think we
Yeah.
stayed up all night figuring that migration out.
It really is amazing. I mean, you think about, this started as a pet project, just kind of a side hobby. Say, hey, let's try to figure this out. And then it kind of, it from a proof of concept perspective, it definitely blew up. It never, got, huge legs up until now. Now that it's being integrated into an Uphold, it can become a real it can become a real utility platform. There's so much more to it. And that's what this space needs. We need to go from that toddler stage where we're just crawling around and figuring things out to full utility in the consumer phase, where we're starting to see actual application. And I think this is that big leap. And the fact that Coil, and I always thought it was interesting, want to get your feedback on this part of it. I always thought it was interesting and unusual that Coil needed the tip bot kind of in order to function and help stream payments. So you have one project relying on someone else's hobby in order to stream payments was not really the best system. But now, what do you guys think? Is this going to continue in that mechanism or what?
I think it's the cart before the horse. What Coil needs is like 100 payment pointers or different people running their own connectors so that consumers have all these different options in different places around the world. Uphold's not going to work for everybody. And right now it's just that there's so few choices out there. It's early days, I guess.
Do you guys think that Coil is functional? I mean, from right now where Coil sits, I believe that the Coil project, it was more of a, it's in a beta test environment. It's a sandbox environment. It's a proof of concept. It wasn't really meant to be a blog.
Well,
Blogging is a component of it, but I think there's so much more of what it can be. But it was interesting, and Chip and I have talked about this, that Coil as a platform, why did they limit themselves by creating Coil as a blog when it was really meant to be a streaming platform? What do you guys think on that? What's your take?
Well, if you go to Coil now, because I have uploaded on Coil 3 times this week, I kind of got motivated again for purposes of doing fluff and kind of an expanded version of what I'm doing at the end that's more light. And the Coil actually changed out their front advertisement, and they are actually now promoting themselves for podcasts and video and blog. And yeah, I think they're starting to reach beyond just blog.
Good. I don't know if I think I can say this. Talk to the Cinnamon Video guys, and I'm like, hey, if you guys could do podcasts on your platform, that would be absolutely huge, because that's something that I've always wanted to do. But you have to go and create a website and then find a host, and the host is either going to inject advertising or they're going to do something else, or you have to pay $20 a month for something my size that would work anyway. And like none of that was very appealing to me, so I haven't done it yet. But there is a tremendous amount of people out there who have Podcast Addict is the one that I use on my phone, and never go to YouTube or never go to I don't know, Twitter. So there is a huge audience out there that I think could be reached, and if they go with something like that, I'm definitely going to jump on it, and I think it's tremendous.
Well, I was gonna say, I would say one thing about that. One of the things I do like about it though, Sam, is that we were always like mystified. You know, there's all these platforms. You're like, oh, I got to upload here and upload to Cinnamon. We tried uploading to Cinnamon. Man, I would rather cut my left arm off and store it in the freezer for about an hour, come back and see if it still fits, because it was a little bit wonky. I know they're getting a little bit better at it, but it was just like such an uncomfortable experience. But one of the things we liked about, because when you first get into the whole podcast, we're like, wait a minute, we got to now go to Apple and Google. No, it's a pointer. So I like there almost is sort of a decentralized sort of an idea around it. And everyone's like, no, it needs to be more like YouTube where you just put it on. I'm like, no, it's actually better that you create the pointers, because like you said, like you have your, I prefer Spotify, you know, and now Spotify just got Rogan for $100 million. But I've always been I was like the early adopter of Spotify in the US. I love Spotify because I listen to all my music. Now I got my podcast there. And I do think it's a very solid. There's actually way more people. They're saying that The Voice right now, there's 25% of the world's population that listens to it regularly, or something like that.
Big number.
It's a lot bigger than YouTube. It's a lot bigger than YouTube. Would you, Eddie? Would you ever do like a podcast specific, like on sumo wrestling or something like that? I mean, like just go off topic, you know, like kind of how you started. Or would you just continue, like more or less take what you're doing and throw it on like a podcast?
Well, I almost feel like with YouTube, it functions the same as a podcast if you want, because you can just listen to it. So I have been, you know, it just has one more added value, is that you can actually see the person at times. So if the person prefers, but I don't see too much of a difference between podcasts and YouTube. To be quite honest, except for, of course, there's a huge difference in platforms, but it's all based on listening and not watching. And you can choose to just listen YouTube. So I don't know. I think for me, if I am going to, like I had said, if I'm going to spend time creating something new, I'm not going to do sumo again, because I found that it just, the interest in terms of global interest is so minute that it's just not enough people, even though it's very core niche, and sometimes going very core niche is the way to be successful. But it just is too small of a market. So I think I'm going to probably continue to expand out on the Japanese culture and the Japanese fluff. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I would like a whole fluff podcast. I would really love that, because sometimes that's one of my favorite parts of it. And I want to congratulate Sam, because Sam made the Boost program on Cinnamon, and I think you were like the top creator over there on Cinnamon. That's huge, right, man. Fantastic. That's great. You want to talk about that experience? Because I mean, I love the way you leverage the fact that you give people the sneak peek before they see it on YouTube. How much sooner they get to see it?
So I've been playing with Cinnamon for a while now, and I've been thinking about doing a video on Cinnamon for other content creators to kind of talk about exactly this, where I share some tips and things. But the number one thing to recognize, at least in my opinion, is you've trained your audience to go to YouTube. Like me, I've trained my audience to watch everything on YouTube. And if all I'm doing is publishing to YouTube and publishing to Cinnamon, nobody's going to go watch it on Cinnamon. You have to create an incentive, give them a reason to go and watch it. Right. So I've done some that were, you know, normally I'll try and do, or I've been doing for a while, like 24 hours advance for Coil subscribers to be able to come in and watch it. Whenever I post these, I put them on my Patreon, and I have a private YouTube channel with links there so that patrons can watch them. I also link the Coil videos, so Coil subscribers who are also patrons can go watch the Coil version on Cinnamon. So they get it like a day ahead of time. And I like that because, you know, the patrons are supporting me. Coil supports me, but also the bigger community, because it definitely, you know, I've seen at least a half dozen to a dozen people that have gone and signed up for Coil because they wanted to watch one of my videos early. And then that helps every other content creator out there, because they usually watch me and one or two other people. So I like that aspect of it. Like this week I did the Jay Widener interview. I put that out like think 5 days ahead of time, because I had done a whole bunch of videos last week because I was going to be out at the farm working this week. So I kind of spaced them out a couple days and then a couple more days. And so it worked a little better. I mean, I guess you give people more time, more people are going to come and find it. And then I've also kind of experimented with doing some that are cinnamon only. I did a really cute one with my daughter while she was here.
Oh, that was so cute.
I thought it was pretty funny. I wish we would have had more time. We could have made it even funnier, but it came out great, I think.
That was fun.
And so, just long form certainly works, because, it's a 5-minute video or a 1-minute video. Even if it gets hundreds of views, it's not going to pay anything. So really, like 45-minute to an hour content works really well on the Cinnamon platform. And a lot of the shorter stuff, the audience just doesn't have critical mass yet. So
do you feel, Sam,
like
do you feel like you're going to get that Cinnamon's going to get there? Do you think it seems like, when we were looking at the analytics and what they were releasing, it seemed like their numbers were just really, really low in terms of overall engagement, overall payout. It's such a big undertaking, to do what they're doing. They're going up against the Goliath, so, how does that, even though it's in the space, how long can they continue? And, I don't see a big reach out into the community, similar to Coil. I think Coil is very narrow focused. I think they're doing things, really poorly in terms of engagement.
I think both of them are really like just getting started. So Cinnamon, they hired a community engagement manager, and her job, this is who I was on the phone call with a couple of weeks ago. Her job is to kind of like go out, reach out to other communities that are not crypto and XRP related. And I think, like Joe Rogan moving to Spotify, that's going to give them millions of new register people coming into Spotify to register so they can listen to the podcast. If they could do that even on a smaller scale and start carving out some ecosystems that they kind of attract a crowd to, I think that could work. I think what they're doing with the booster program. So there's a remote viewing guy that I followed for years, Dr. Courtney Brown. I saw he created this new, some kind of like video subscription where you sign up for the year and it's $100, and they're doing like episodes of, I don't know, remote viewing or something like that. Interesting. I would watch it, but I'm not going to shell out $100 to watch this thing. And so I wrote him and I'm like, hey, there's this Coil thing. They're doing this booster program. I would watch, other people in my audience would watch. I would promote it. Is he going to move it? I don't know. But hopefully, that community manager can reach out to him and to other groups like that. And I think that's really the strategy they should do. And I think that's generally what they are. With Coil, yeah, they've kind of just thrown their little blog site out there. But at the same time, behind the scenes, they're working with Forte. They're working with Grant for the Web. The Grant for the Web stuff, I think that's going to be huge. You've got WordPress now. So it's starting to come out. All this stuff takes time. And I think they've been working really hard behind the scenes with a lot of stuff that we don't see that's starting to bear fruit. And I think it's going to be, a few more years as well. But it's still, Ripple's been working on payments for 5 years now, and Coil's even less than that. And it's, I think, an even bigger undertaking, because payments is the banking industry, versus web monetization touches just so many different groups and companies and software applications and everything else out there.
Eddie, what did you think about that? What are your thoughts about the Coil ecosystem, Cinnamon? Are you
Well, I had a phone or a video meeting with one representative from Coil and one representative from Cinnamon about 3 weeks ago. And they too, I think they were reaching out in the community to get some feedback as to why people are not using it or why they are using it. What are the difficulties? What is it? And I think for the most part, I want some comments on Coil. I would love to have comments on Coil. And
Yeah.
also too, I would like to see where we only have to upload one time and it propagates into all these other platforms at the same time. Because
there you go.
I told him the time that it takes for me to just do Twitter and YouTube and my card. And then I think, oh my gosh, it's going to take me another 15, 20, 30 minutes to do Cinnamon. And then, you know, whatever else what other platform I'm going to reach out on. It's becomes a full-time job. And this is not my full-time job. You know, this is
What?
really.
Really?
Kids, are you
Okay.
people? Hello, are you listening to this? I thought it was your full-time job. It's weird how everyone thinks this is your full-time job, right? Just because you'll do it, you have a passion for it.
Yeah, because it's fun, right?
It is. It is fun to do. It is.
I'm still having fun after all this time.
Well, you know what?
Awesome.
I'll say something about Coil. So you know, Stefan Thomas put out a really cool blog post. And he's like, hey, check out all these ideas for creators. What could you do? And I happen to go like, hey, this is interesting. What if you created some additional extra content and then he said like a podcast, and I'm thinking, or a video, and you post it on Coil. And then we applied to the Boost program on Coil. Rejected, not once, not twice, 3 times. And we spent hours and hours and hours creating content and doing this stuff and writing this stuff and promoting it and promoting people to go over to our Coil, go now and go watch we do this thing called the after show. And we love go watch the after show. And, you know, originally we had him hidden behind the, you know, only so you have a subscription. We're like, oh, we need to open that up right away because although it's a great idea, we can't be responsible for it. We're not shilling subscriptions. We're just promoting the platform. You know what I mean? And so we failed badly at that. So then, you know, we thought like, oh, you know, it was a nice experiment. But I will say, personally, I made the Boost program over on Coil. So I was really that kind of took me by shock. And, you know, I wrote some pretty weird blog posts that haven't really, some of them none to do with crypto at all. Like how you could send, and don't get mad at your enemies, send them poop. You could send them gorilla poop or elephant poop, and
that was the best one.
And
I'm expecting a follow-up to that. I still don't know which one the best one.
You're going to be shocked at. Well, I shouldn't really say this, but there's someone I'm in the process. Sometimes in business, people make you mad. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's anonymous.
I want to send it.
The best thing is they have this.
To send it to.
Well, they have like a hodgepodge one. It's like a mixture of gorilla poop and it's like. It's just mixed together, right? I want someone to do a video crew. They send them out there and they go, oh, what's this? And they open it, it pops up in their face. But no, I would say that the booster program is a pretty cool idea. And, you know, it's really great, Sam, to see that, you know, you made it, because I think you're one of the people really showing, and a creator out there is showing a really interesting way, giving someone an early option to go see it. Hey, I really want to go see that. And I've gone over there. The other thing that I like about Cinnamon that I think they're clever about is they tell you the time when someone posted a comment. Like when they post 120
that's
in,
really cool.
a minute 20 in, awesome video, I loved it. Well, wait a minute, you only watched the minute 20 of it. You know what I mean? It's like, or if they comment on something, you can go to that time and see. What I've done on my Coil blogs, I said, I have a little statement. Until Coil decides to implement comments, you can click on the tweet below and add comments there. So that's what I've done. I embed a tweet. It's really weird. It's like a timing thing. Like I post it up there, then I got to go type the tweet up really fast. And then I have a little line that says embed tweet here, and I erase that and put the tweet in there. And believe it or not, that engagement, people started going out and retweeting. It actually created better engagement on Twitter than Coil. So people were like retweeting it and commenting on it. So
yeah, that's interesting. You know, and one of the things that we saw, and it's interesting too, because they're reaching out to the community, trying to figure out how they can get more engagement. So the one thing that I saw within Coil is that they aren't looking for external engagement. They kept they're promoting themselves from internal engagement, which is a huge mistake. You know, so they're looking at in the people that are getting they got the Boost program within Coil are getting the thumbs up or the upvotes, but you can only get upvotes if you're a subscriber to Coil. And then there's no tracking mechanism to see how many people are being pushed over to the Coil platform from an external medium. So like for instance, what we were doing, and again, you know, whatever, you know, whether we get the Boost or not, I always look at every project for its pros and its cons. Here I see a glaring issue within the platform, so I'm going to speak out about it. But I see that where here we are on our side promoting hey, we're doing this roundtable, you know, we're doing, or an after show. You can go over to Coil to see it, you know, go to Coil to see it. We're pushing people over to that platform, yet there's no metrics that Coil is showing that they're tracking, that we're actually sending new people over to their platform from YouTube to engage our video. Now, we know the video is getting engagement because we see it on YouTube. Now, the thing is, we have those videos in unlisted or private, whatever it is, so that people can see it, but it's not on YouTube. So it's exclusive content on Coil, and we're seeing the engagement on our side, but that's a glaring, you know, mistake on their part, that they're only trying to promote from within, and that's limited, you know. So if they want external engagement, hey, let's look at how people externally, all of us sitting here, how are we going to push more people over to their platform? And it's interesting too, because it's not just their issue. You know, you look at like library. We just had Jeremy Kaufman on the show. Amazing guy, right? Yeah, you look at the platform that they're building over there, probably better than YouTube, you know, based on how clean it is, you know, the format and all of that.
Decentralized.
Definitely decentralized, definitely a better experience overall than working within Cinnamon. You know, those guys have really put a lot of effort. Cinnamon will probably get there at some point. What we love about and the ease of use of library is that everything we put on YouTube is automatically pushed over there. You know, so that part, it's one upload, one engagement, our stuff's there. We're getting followers on library and we're never there. The downside of that is that we're never there. You know, I'm not on library to engage with the viewers on library, which is maybe a part of our fault, part the platform's fault. You know, where we need to be over there engaging to get more followers on that platform, which is, you know, part of the big issue of trying to compete against YouTube. You know, so there's a lot of, you know, great ideas out there. And somehow, like Sam is saying, you know, it's so early in the space, but these guys, you know, I feel like you only have a couple of chances at it before you fail. You know, when you're taking on a YouTube, if you don't get it right out of the gate, you're never going to get there. You know, as much as you keep trying, it's going to be so hard. It's such a big obstacle. You have to really try to hit it out of the park. But I don't even think we're at that point yet. I think we're still in the sandbox phase. What do you think?
Jeff, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So the example with the unlisted video that you're promoting on Coil, wouldn't that be like solved by the WordPress plugin or integration? If you were posting to a WordPress site?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So, yeah, I'm excited about. Yeah, I'm really excited about the WordPress plugin because, in my opinion, I really think that's what Coil's all about. Anyways, I think that their existing blog right now, like I was saying earlier, is just kind of their test bed. It was proof of concept.
I think that's their strategy, is to really push it out that way. And this was just something for us geeks to play with.
Exactly. Yep. 100%. It's going to be, when they move it over to WordPress, it's going to blow up. It's going to be massive, because then it doesn't even matter. It's on your site. You control it. You do what you want. You can hide content, not hide content. It allows you on your website to give people access to hidden content. To me, it's a game changer. That's why where it's going in WordPress, to me, is game changing.
And a certain percentage of those people that are signing up for Coil for their favorite blog site are going to start watching Cinnamon video, or, you know, library, or whoever else does the web monetization. So
agreed. Yeah.
I think it could really has a potential to grow and get big.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So you gotta, to me, it goes back to that blog post that the Imager guy wrote when he left Imager and joined Coil. I did a video about it. It's like, he sees I think the potential, and really did a good job of kind of laying out the facts. And I think they're dead on with what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's the person I spoke to when they reached out to get some feedback.
Oh, okay. Good deal.
Did anybody see that Facebook rushed through their new monetization for streaming? And they are targeting games. I touched on it a little bit in a video a couple days ago, but they actually have rushed through their launch. And what it is you can then as a viewer watching a stream, you can send stars, and then those stars can be redeemed for USD. And I think each star is worth 1 penny, and you can take out money. Yeah.
Nice.
You can take out money when you reach 10,000 stars. That's $100, and then you're able to withdraw. So they kind of batch it in batches of 100. But this
Where
is
does it come from though? What are the stars like? Who's funding that?
Facebook
Oh,
coin.
Facebook is. Oh, gotcha.
Well,
Okay,
but
so
you're paying to buy them, right?
I think, I'm not a big Facebook user anymore, so probably you do buy those stars to actually send out, right? It's kind of a form of, we call it nage-sen in Japan, where you're throwing money. It's like a throwing tips to people.
Okay, so I mean, it's
Interesting.
basically it's Coil without streaming payments,
Yes.
with batch payments,
Yes.
and high thresholds,
Yes.
and user buy-in before. Yeah,
Yeah. You
Well, it's
got
the
it.
same
So
as YouTube,
is
though.
it kind of like a super chat,
Kind of like,
or
yeah, that's
yep.
really
That's a really good comparison. But the point is that this monetization through platforms in content that you're creating, whether it's streaming games or whatever, I think this is the next big wave. And as Evan Schwartz said, for the Interledger XRPL, that their market size is all the money. And the reason this is probably this is probably the closest step, in my opinion, that the ledger is getting to all the money, because it's not just USD and Ethereum and XRP, but as Sam was saying,
anybody that wants to put a connector on.
anybody
can do it?
This is, I think, the closest thing they've ever done to that statement.
Agree.
Yeah. That was great. You did that video earlier on that, all the money. I like that video.
Yeah, that's been
That was a
around
good
a
one.
long
That was a
time.
little-
I just used it because it was perfect. It was really perfect to use for the purpose of that article that was out yesterday, in that the circulating supply was really keeping the price of XRP down. But this project XRP is quite different than other projects out there, and the circulating supply is going to be used in a whole lot of different ways than just cross-border payments. And the fact that it does have this real utility, and I'm not trying to get on going into that XRP mode, but I think that the circulating supply, as this space matures and they actually can execute on some of these visions like the WordPress micro payments, you need a lot of XRP.
You do,
need a lot of XRP.
or a high value,
or high value, or a combination of both.
right? Yeah. Now, do you think what you were talking about with Facebook kind of moving forward with this monetization process? Is Facebook somehow rolling out behind the scenes? Are they rolling out Libra? Do you think, is Libra a back end mechanism to that? What do you think?
Well, they probably would tie it together. Why wouldn't they? So I'm sure that is probably maybe the art. When they build the architecture from the ground up, it's coming from the same visionaries, and so I'm sure they're going to make it interoperable. I just can't imagine they wouldn't, because they're a platform that is they've got some of the smartest people working there as well, and they're going to, I'm sure, do that.
They did have to roll fiat into Libra, so I imagine they're just going to bridge the two and transition over and turn them into some kind of Libra coin or something like that.
Yeah, instead of stars, you'll probably be able to, or you can choose stars, or you can choose Libra coin. I think
Well, darts. Can I choose darts? That'd be fun.
Like darts in. So it's interesting though, because it looks like, here's Libra saying they're waiting for regulatory clarity, but how long can they sit around waiting for the US government? I was talking about earlier, I said the US government's playing checkers while the rest of the world's playing chess right now in the digital currency space. And whether or not these central bank digital currencies that are rolling out are centralized, are true on blockchain, are true crypto, that is relevant but not relevant in terms of where the US is right now, and kind of dragging ass. And so here's one of the things that Zuckerberg said is that China is getting ready to take a huge advanced leap ahead of us, and we got to do something. If we don't, it's going to be too late. And that's why he was pushing Libra. At the time, it sounded like a marketing ploy. Now we see it as something that's real. What do you think? I mean, is this their gamble at this point to say, hey, we got to push this forward somehow?
They're not waiting. If you think that they're waiting in the wings for US, you're crazy. They're not waiting. They're working as hard and as fast as ever, I believe. Yeah, they're not going to wait for the US.
No,
And
I don't think.
is China leapfrogging the whole world? Absolutely.
They're trying. Yeah.
No, they're trying, but the Chi-Coms, okay. So if you look at the Chi-Coms over there, they got one thing that they're great at and that they're basically growing at every day is control and pushing that thumb down. And now the final piece of that obviously is obviously, you know, a currency where now your social score will also weirdly be linked to how you get paid and everything else. So I mean, it is a great play by them. I mean, it's like, I mean, this is what you would have dreamed about when communism was just getting started. Like, how do we control how they pay people? How do we control the black market? Oh, I see. How the blockchain private. See, that's the other thing about this is the CBDCs. You hear also about that. Like Ukraine did this test pilot program with Stellar, the Stellar what do you call it? Their API, and they were mad because they were trying to privatize it, and they were like, well, if we privatize it, they kind of put that PR statement out that they couldn't really make it more of a private thing. They wanted to use the API, they wanted to use the SDK, but then again, they also wanted to keep it private. They didn't want to use it in that level. So I think ultimately it was just more like a press release they put out on this. I don't know, did you guys see that at all?
No,
I didn't.
Yeah,
No.
it's really the closest thing that's hit our community when we look at, you know, a real bank test piloting something.
I just there's a lot of projects that are going to try and do some kind of privacy feature, and that's why I like Monero. It's built from the ground up to be private, and Elixir as well. You know, they ban cash; the black market's going to explode, and it will drive, you know, a lot of activity in those two communities and any other one that can really provide true privacy, not like we get from Zcash or Dash.
you're right. There's going to be two, and Simon Dixon, who's been in the space a long time, did seed rounds for Uphold and Ripple and Coinbase and all. You know, he's been in the space a very, very long time. He talked about that recently. In Tokyo had their Asian summit last week, ended on Friday, and he did a speaker series and said that he sees two different parallel payment systems for people who want to go to the mainstream, but there's going to be this push towards a private way to actually still transact.
Digital cash. Yeah.
And so I think he's right on. I think it's going to happen, and it's because, Chip, you talk about, it's the pushing down from the top of the government of total control. Your privacy's gone. They know exactly what you're doing. They're selling your data. You know, I think it's going to create this other channel.
The interesting part will be to see, you know, once cash is gone and out of the picture, how do people move value into something like Monero or Elixir? Like, and what kind of innovations is the marketplace going to come up with to allow people to move in and out? Is it going to be precious metals sent through the mail? Well, then you're limited to domestic payments or, you know, transfers, I guess.
Tokenized.
So I don't know. It's interesting. It's definitely going to become an issue down the road at some point, but
well, especially the governments, right? If the governments are going to have any say in it, they're probably not going to want to see this parallel path to have private, private tokens out there working in parallel to the sovereign digital currencies as they try to control and manipulate the markets,
which are going to be falling apart anyway, because, you know, you're going to have sound money crypto over here, or inflating like there's no tomorrow CBDCs over here, and be able to move seamlessly between them, they're going to lose so much demand. And of course, at the same time, the black market's going to start thriving as they're kind of like lashing out, trying to capture more, new taxes or new this or new that.
Yep.
When really it's because they aren't fixing the root problem, which is their out of control spending and their unsound fiscal monetary policy.
That's spot on, and then, we look at it from that perspective. It's interesting too, because most of the central bank digital currencies, well, at least looking at China's central bank digital currency, it's not really on the blockchain. It's not decentralized. It's a centralized platform, somewhat on the DLT. But here they are putting a mechanism in place more out of control as they try to dominate Southeast Asia. There's a lot more at play, a lot more at stake, as they're trying to take an upper hand to destabilize the US dollar as a reserve currency. So there's a lot of political and geopolitical implication in what they're trying to do. It's interesting because at the same time, people get excited about this movement. Then you think about it, and it's a difficult spot for us all to be in, because then we take a step back and say, well, wait a minute.
This is
the
terrible.
Idea of, right, it's terrible.
Exactly.
just like the US digital dollar, horrible. And wait a minute, Bitcoin, the whole concept was decentralized, put the power back in the hands of the people. We're going the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what drives me crazy about, Thinking Crypto. Tony did an interview with Andreas Antonopoulos, and I've actually got that in Premiere Pro. I've been kind of cutting it down. He's spent the last like 2 years going out and telling everybody, well, it has to be resistant from censorship. It has to be resistant from state-sponsored attack. It has to be decentralized. It has to be that. It has to be this. And now he's like, Lightning Network is the future, where you hand your coins. He's doing it as, well, you just set it up on your wallet and this and that. But if you actually look at how Lightning Network is being used, it's not that at all. It's totally centralized. It's being subsidized by the company that designed it, to the tune of every $1 million they put in, they're getting $50 out in return on investment. That's like 0.005% versus 50,000 that they should be able to get from that $1 million worth of Bitcoin. Not sustainable, right? I don't care how many users you add to it. And like, if I was him, this is what I'm going to say in the video. If I was him, when he's like, oh yeah, Lightning Network is working now, you can use that wallet, I'd be like, okay, I watched your previous videos. I know you're promoting that wallet. I've set it up. I've sent you my address. Send me $1,000. I'll send it right back to you. Oh, well, it can't do that. Okay. How about 800, 600, 400, 300? Now we got a 50% chance of that transaction going through. So we might have to send it 2 times to get it to me, or it's not going to work. I mean,
Listen, the problem with that, Sam, is you can't fix tech. You know how this is with legacy systems. I know you're a tech guy, and the hardest thing you experience in tech is when you have legacy. You either have to scrap everything and rewrite it, but then you have an existing user base. And the problem when you can't get to the original source code and there aren't any validators to vote on stuff or to change it. It was a great idea, but the tech is old and it gets surpassed. And like, no matter what, you can write Lightning networks and layers and side chains. They're like, oh, no, this was the next big thing. Well, the side chain is going to be the savior. We'll have side chains for this, and they'll all work. Yeah, but you got to go back to the same problem, right?
Well, they still have that 8 transaction per second boat anchor that they're dragging around. But at the same time, now he's going around telling everybody to use layer 2, which compromises all the principles that made layer 1 great, that he spent the last 2 years, singing the praises of. So it's like, which Andreas am I supposed to believe here? Because, before you told me this was important, now you're telling me this is the way to go. And it's, again, it goes back to that 8 transactions per second. And I like what Roger Ver has done. I think he's right. And, a lot of people don't like him, whatever. I think he's got the right idea of it should scale. It should, it's electronic cash is what's described in the white paper. The Bitcoin that we have today is not what was intended.
It's interesting. Yeah, earlier I was looking over. I've been following the kind of the economic turmoil going on over in Lebanon. It's been ongoing for a while, especially as they've moved their currency from being pegged to the U.S. dollar to not being pegged to the U.S. dollar, which is going to have a major implication for them. But now, because of all the uncertainty and corruption and everything else, you're seeing people moving over to Bitcoin as a store of value, as we've seen in other instances. Because here you have countries that are already relatively unstable. Where you have part of the country that's trying to be normal in a parliamentary environment, while part of the country is still controlled by a terrorist organization, and there's still tribal mentality going on that's impacting it. Has a major destabilizing effect on their economics. What do you guys think about that part of it? I really think it's just interesting that they feel like they have nowhere else to go right now, but yet they feel comfortable moving over to Bitcoin, which is still relatively volatile, as we've seen. What do you guys think about that?
Currency of last resort.
Yeah. Well, and part of like right now, there's huge demand for dollars all over the world for liquidity. And so that's why, the Fed's printed, I don't know how many trillions of dollars in the last couple months, but yet it's not, it is affecting prices, but there's other factors I think that are playing a bigger role in that than dollar printing. And it's because that inflation is getting exported to all these other countries. And what I think we're going to see is more and more Lebanons and Venezuelas and Irans and so forth. And eventually it'll come back home to roost in the United States, but it's going to make the rounds first as these weaker economies go down. And yeah, people are jumping into Bitcoin. Like I'm still sticking to, I think we could see 6-figure Bitcoin by the end of 2022. Not because it's great and it has a use case and all this stuff, but because it's still running on fumes of first mover advantage and name brand recognition. And that's it.
Yeah.
And you have the traditional financial entities that have invested all of those financial instruments, and they've,
this is the one.
They're committed.
This is the one. We're going to do Bitcoin futures or Bitcoin this. Yeah. And they're stuck.
Not going to let it fail because they have so much invested in trying to create a new financial instrument to make their services and financial, bottom line bigger. So they are committed too. So they're not going to want to see it fail, and they're going to keep it propped up as long as possible.
It's also scarce too. The one thing I'm happy about Bitcoin is I don't have to hear about the halving, the bit flopping. The halving, right? The halving was like, it's like every 4 years you get the parties, and that video you did, Sam, was just brilliant on that whole halving thing. But I gotta say, it's like let me do the Bitcoin news. The Bitcoin news it's gonna break 9,000. Break 9,000. Can it hold the resistance? If it can hold the resistance with a golden cross and a T-shaped bird on top, then it could do it. That's what they talk about all the time, or the halving, and the halving's over for another 4 years. But they were surprised. It was like, oh my gosh, the transaction fees went up. I'm like, well, miners, those transaction fees are nothing. And then you see and Ethereum as well. Like you see all the complaints about Ethereum and the bottlenecks going on now. They're like, oh man, the 3 times they're going up by 3-4 times. Well, that's kind of how it was, more or less. That's the properties of what it is. What did you expect something different to happen?
And at the same time, you've got Justin Sun. He took over Steemit, which is another kind of monetization platform. And then he somehow wrangled the exchanges to use these positions, these staked positions, to vote, which they said they would never do. And now he's like writing people out of the block, like basically seizing their assets. One guy had 80,000, I can't remember if it was euros or dollars invested, and he just lost it. It's so amazing what goes on in this space and what gets attention. And what people see and care about. It boggles my mind.
Yeah. There's a lot of amazing things that are going on. And I think some people, they miss out on the important aspects. Like, over the past week, we've had the opportunity to interview some really amazing people. We started last week with the guys from FinNexus. They're doing the decentralized finance. And I don't know if people really understood what they're trying to accomplish, which was amazing. Then we had the guy from Tachyon, and kind of rewriting TCP/IP. I think it was just like over most people's heads. I was trying to understand most of it. Chip, was digging all of it, but I got the gist that it was something, really it's going to change the way we function, a lot, online. And then we had Alex Mashinsky on. We had Jeremy Kaufman on, but it's just like there's so many amazing things that are going on in the space. And you're right, what in the world are people focused on? They're focused on the golden cross of Bitcoin. They want the drama. They want the hype.
Satoshi moved 50 Bitcoins. It's over.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they want to talk about. Was it Satoshi? What's happening with Craig Wright? Is he going to jail? Is he not going to jail? I'm like, come on. It's bizarre. It's kind of like bizarre world, but here we are all seeing the reality of what's unfolding, and the direction that this space is moving into. It's just phenomenal. It really is, and it's one thing that a lot of people talked about it. I know Chip did a video on it. I think you guys both may have done videos on it as well, that I think is really going to have bigger impact overall in the space when it comes to XRP, but was the fact that they added a deletable account. And it's little things like that sometimes get, people talk about it, but overall, it's overlooked, the significance of what that really is. And those are the adjustments and changes within the space. What do you guys think about that? I mean, are you seeing that dichotomy? Here people are obviously we're focused here, but here's really where all the important stuff is.
The XRPL has a lot of really incredible features that nobody can access because the wallets are just so basic. It's another, cart before the horse kind of thing. They've got to get some full featured wallets that will let me set up multi-sig and whatever, enable the deletable accounts feature. There was somebody on Reddit that was trying to send their 20 XRP that they had in a wallet and it kept failing. And they're like, well, deletable accounts is here. Why isn't this working? I'm like, that's not how it works. Well, can you explain it to me? And I'm like, no.
We had some people even write in our comments like,
same thing. I tried sending.
The same thing. Like, well, I'm supposed to keep 5, because I'm like, there has to be a transaction fee, right? There's going to be a transaction burn of 5 XRP, but people are like, I can't get my stuff on. I'm like, again, it just because it was voted on doesn't necessarily mean you snap the fingers and it's magically there,
But even then, once it's in and up and going, how many people are actually going to be able to? How many people are submitting transactions to the network, not using a wallet? Because that's what it takes now.
Right. Yeah. Well, also the meaning behind it, right? It's actually what that deletable. I think there's other functionality that has nothing to do with the small retail investor at this point. I think that deletable wallet, and Chip touched on that.
Just the accounting part of it.
There's a lot more to it.
You could open up a wallet. You could, if you're sending a transaction and you want to open it, you can close it, and then there's your 5% burn. But I think ultimately this has been in there for a while. It finally got voted on, right? Passed. But I think if we look long term, and Jeff brought this up early days. He's like, you know what? There's going to come a time where for the average user, you're not going to be able to open up a wallet. It's going to take $2,000. It's going to become too cost prohibitive. I mean, obviously that'll change going down the road, but you start making these changes early because you have all these wallets out there. It's like, well, got to keep the 20 XRP in there. So there has to be a way. There has to be a way to undo that, right? And I think that when I see things like that happening in the space, I'm like, this is a really good thing, and everyone's like, 589. Moon.
I mean, so I did a video when this feature was introduced, and like one of the alternatives to deletable accounts is you find somebody that wants a wallet and you sell it to them maybe for 80% or 85% versus the 75% you get back. You set up multi-sig wallets, right? You set it up as a multi-sig. They own the new multi-sig accounts that you link to the master account. And then once you disable the master key, they have control of it. And later, if they want to rotate in a new set of keys, they could pass it off to somebody else.
Wow.
So
What a great concept.
in some
I
way,
can't even get people to get XRP. I can't get my best friends to say like, "Hey, I'll give it a whirl. I got $20 laying around. What the hell?"
Here,
you know,
I'll sell you a wallet.
in some ways, like I think it's good to be able to pull wallet. Like if you're done, you're walking away from it, you want to pull everything off of there, and it reduces the size of the ledger for every 3 seconds when they're being recorded. I think that's a good thing, but at the same time, there are some alternatives that I think could exist. And of course, Chip, they can always lower that. It doesn't have to be 20 XRP. It could be 1 down the road.
It could be a fraction. Yeah, it can be voted on by consensus. And that's interesting. But when we saw the big boom, 17, 18, it went up to $3. Opening a wallet was $60. But I think it's interesting when we look at it from this perspective, ongoing. I'm a firm believer that I just don't believe that XRP was made for the retail consumer. I believe it was all made for institution use. And it causes some potential issue with banks utilizing this solution that individuals are accessing. But that's where Ripple now, I think there's more to it. But Chip brought up, I really think that this is such a key point, which is the accounting, because for all these institutions out there, if you're moving money, I don't think at some point you have a lot of corporations that are giving you money. I want to transact. I need to send $1 million and I want to send it through the bank. I don't want to transact it through the same wallet that everybody else's transactions are going through. I want it to be a wallet that opens and a wallet that closes. And I don't want any loose ends. I don't want to, it has got to, from a company perspective, it's got to, that has to happen. It has to open, it has to close, and from an accounting perspective, you can't have, even if it's $20 lingering out there, it can't happen, even though it's a burn. I don't know. What do you think?
I think they're going to use payment channels, ILP, and that will be their open and close. And then they'll just have their wallets and somehow record that as a write-off or whatever and kind of in the same way that there's a cost associated with setting up your Nostro and Vostro accounts. That's similar to what these are going to do. But
if they kept them in there, is there a point where we start running out? It's just like, how many wallets do you keep opening? 20 XRP, 20 XRP, 20. At some point, you have all these, thousands and thousands of wallets.
There already are. There's already
right, just sitting there. You can't do anything with them.
Yeah, I guess they could do one and open, just have their one pool and open as many payment channels as they need to out of that same wallet. I don't know.
If I could just,
it's a little.
I was wondering if we could just. So if we could just do a little I want to share my screen real quick. I want to throw this up here, and boom, just hit you with something. Where is my? Let's see, share screen. Boom. It's one of the things I don't like. It just goes ahead and shares it. There we go. So these are the projects right here that. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Let's see. A little bit bigger. So these are the projects that were funded, grant for the web, $250,000 in funding. And so one project that I really like is Free Music Archive. Yep. Dutch-based Tribe of Noise, owners and stewards of the Free Music Archive, which I believe is right here, which is actually a pretty cool little project. This one I thought, to me, really stuck out. There's something called the Coronavirus Handbook. And I don't really know. That's Dev. Partnership with Dev on the community hackathon, driving exploration and experimentation around web monetization standards, which seems interesting. And then this, we never see enough ambassadors for any project at all, do we? So this one's the grant for web ambassadors. So it looks like they're gonna proud to announce our first 2 ambassadors, Hoi Jing, better known in the dev community as HJ, and web developer from Malaysia and the founder of Talk CSS, Chris Beasley. So there you go. That's the project.
I think that last one is really interesting. They need I think having more ambassadors from the development community is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I talked to Chris, the guy, I think the guy who's leading up this effort, that was one of the things I told him is there has to be an educational aspect to this that kind of informs and trains people and educates them on, what's happening and what's possible. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's
I've never heard of Free Music Archive, but freesounds.org. If you've heard my intro, the waves, the seagulls, the bell, all that's where it comes from. I pull so much sound effects off of that website.
Huh.
Yeah, we license ours and we get strikes, community strikes. I mean, copyright strikes. You know what's here? Here's the weird thing about YT. You guys know what I'm saying, right? So you can't actually upload the license because you've actually licensed something. So you have to wait till you get a strike, you get a copyright strike, and you get demonetized. Then you get a chance to go dispute it. Then you get a chance to upload license. How about I be a responsible adult and you allow me to upload it? So Jeff and I upload a video because we have these like timers that come on now with cool uplifting music and cool graphics and stuff. And sometimes you find the right song and you're like, this sounds pretty good. But then you get striked over and over and over again when you got to go through the whole dispute project. It just doesn't seem very proactive. It's like, hey, did you license the music? I did. Do you have the license? I do. And you copy and paste it in there and you're done. But no, you have we had to do this for several times. It's just an awkward thing.
I think YouTube's peaking right now. And the policies that they're adapting are going to lead to their demise. I mean, long time down the road. But you have the CEO basically going on, giving interviews like, yeah, we don't care. We don't give a shit what the people want. We're going to jam this mainstream media narrative down their throat. Like I'm doing the same search I did a year ago, and I got to go to page 3 or 4 to find what used to be right at the top, what everybody wants to see. And I'm scrolling through NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox. It's like, come on. They're becoming a tool for propaganda, and they're like
becoming.
They just added the you can watch cable TV show. They're becoming cable TV, and they don't really care about their subscribers. They don't care that their platform is being used to defraud people with the giveaway scams. They don't care about any of that stuff. They're there to, make money, and they want to partner with as few people as possible to do that. And it's great that all these little guys have gotten them there, but y'all need to go away now. That's the attitude that they're taking.
Yeah, that's a great observation. We're seeing that, in big channels too. I mean, we feel it, on a small scale, getting monetization strikes or, being censored. We've seen that. I know DNI's had multiple videos that were demonetized and censored and taken down. London Real had multiple videos, one after another taken down. And the list goes on and on, and now he created his own platform. Interesting. Ivan on Tech has left YouTube, and he posts stuff on YouTube, but his main streaming platform's on his own website now. And that, you're right, 100%, and it's so interesting seeing that direction where they're just stepping on everybody. They have their narrative, they have their political agenda, and that's it, and we can be here as long as we can. And Crypto, you brought that up in the beginning, are we seeing a change in the algorithm? Their algorithm is meant to silence, your voice if it's in dissent of, what their theme is, and so, the AI is listening all the time.
You think about it, like what more perfect opportunity could there be for a decentralized web monetization system to roll out into this environment? I mean,
right.
It's the perfect opportunity. It really is.
Yeah, which is where Cinnamon and others like it have a huge. This is their moment. They have to seize this right now. If they wait 6 months, the window is going to close potentially. Maybe not. I don't know. But now's the time to get on board with it.
And like amazing. They need to be reaching out to these other content creators and bending over backwards to get them to come on board and maybe do 100%. Some kind of exclusive content for the platform, and they'll have it made, I think.
I
blow
agree
it
with
up.
that.
Like DLive tried to do that, but I think the failure of DLive was that was a PewDiePie that went there. It's like,
Yeah.
so he goes over there, right? So they get him. He does the live stuff, and if you just missed it by like it coming after it ended, there's no archive there. It's just only live stuff.
Right,
So
Uh,
I felt like that was a weird thing. And so guess
yeah,
what?
that's not going to
YouTube
work.
just snagged him back again. He never stopped YouTube, but it was like he went there and did his live stuff, and then he
for live,
archived
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Hey, by the way, we're coming up on time. I'm just curious about. So let's do a little lightning round. I want to start with Eddie here. Let's go around and let's find out. Like, okay, we're in 2020. The first quarter's behind us. We're coming up in the end of second quarter. What do you see for? Let's talk now. I'm not going to do price predictions, but what do you see happening with the forward motion of what Ripple's doing in conjunction with other projects and companies that are adopting in the space? What do you see? Thank you. That dog keeps popping in here.
I think the developers haven't missed a beat during the last 3-4 months. They are still able to make a lot of forward progress. I think sales, which I do think that Ripple's sales requires a face-to-face engagement. I think it does. And I think the handshake, just the hand holding on a face-to-face basis, because it's a more conservative, traditional sales environment with the banking communities, not the neobanks and not the payment service providers, but in terms of what's happened in the last 3 or 4 months for Ripple with their big banking accounts, I have a feeling things have slowed down a lot. But the developers, I don't think, have missed a beat, and they probably have kept going, especially that one project that I'm most interested about, and that's the new trading platform. I'm very, very interested because it is described to use ODL for the liquidity. So I think that that's going to be something that will probably come live in, I don't know, Q2 or Q3. And that's, I think, going to be huge news, really huge news. And it looks like that in terms of just looking at Japan, the FX Coin, which is an exchange that just announced that they are going to move forward with remittances from Japan using XRP. It's an exchange that's been backed by SBI and an undisclosed amount. I think Mr. Kitao is using FX Coin to actually be the channel, not SBI VC, not SBI Remit. He's using this FX Coin as the way. So I think we're going to see a lot going on with FX Coin in the next 2 quarters, 3 quarters. I mean, I think it's going to be a lot. I think Vietnam's going to be announced. I think Thailand's going to be announced. I think South Korea is going to be announced as live corridors. And this Adam Trademan, who is heading up 2 different divisions in SBI and also holding his CEO position for the Bread Wallet, I think he's really focusing on mining right now. Cointelegraph did an article yesterday, and he's really seems to be focused on the Texas mining project. So and he's still building his SBI Ripple team out. There are still a lot of positions open. So I think that's going to be, I think Mr. Kitao is going to have the most, SBI is going to have the most progress in the next couple of quarters, I think, for XRP. And then I think we're going to see the release of this big trading platform, which I am so excited about.
It's going to be huge.
That's awesome. We're trying to reach out to Adam Trademan to see if we can get him on the show and do an interview with him, which will be interesting.
Sam, what are your thoughts, especially when it comes to ODL? We saw ODL usage up 3 times. So what do you think is going to occur over the next, by the end of 2020?
I think that Ripple has shifted strategies somewhat. They've been focused on getting these new corridors, which means getting an exchange to integrate ODL, and then everybody can send money into that country, provided they have some kind of last mile settlement system in place. But that's not everywhere. I don't know how they're doing it in Mexico, but you have that in Australia. So you have Flash FX down there able to complete payments. You have that in Europe. You don't have it in the US yet. and I think that's maybe one of the bottlenecks that's kind of holding them up from, how long has it been since we've had a new corridor? Are we coming up on like a year?
It's a while.
Seems like a while, yeah.
I mean, so I think that's really going slower than they would like or maybe expected. And what I've seen MoneyGram do is go around and start making deals with all of these big banks to be able to settle with their customers. And I've done video after video talking about their settlement service for banks. I think that's the workaround, is they're going out, or MoneyGram is going out, signing up. What was the last one, Eddie? Was it India?
There was an India, and there's
3, right?
Yeah, there's 3. There's what was it? Not Bangladesh. Was it Bangladesh and India?
I don't remember.
But you had the most amazing, mind-blowing comment on my video.
That's it. Yeah.
I just went, oh my God, that's it. That's it.
It doesn't give you complete coverage into that one place, and MoneyGram may still be using Nostro and Vostro, but what it lets them do is, you have tender for banking, as David Schwartz describes it, where they just click partner with MoneyGram, and then all of a sudden they can start routing, or they can start getting quotes, and then let their system decide which is the cheapest. It's probably still going to be cheaper to do it over RippleNet than Swift. And, wherever it's not going to be 100%, we can settle any bank account in the country, but they're going to start capturing larger and larger percentages of the market to where they will be able to quote more and more of the traffic and kind of take that over. And that's the workaround. And I think that's what's happening. As far as the usage, I think they're doing like some load testing to where they coordinate things in the background with the market makers or whatever. They coordinate things with MoneyGram, and then we have these periods of like really high activity, and then it kind of drops back down, and then it usually goes up to a new peak of sustained activity. I think those are kind of coordinated load tests. They've got metrics running that are showing them, most likely metrics running that are showing them, liquidity measures and who knows what else. And they're taking that back for analysis and figuring out, okay, what's our game plan going forward, and probably sharing that with the other parties and so forth to just ramp it up as fast as they can.
Interesting. So, wow, we're coming up on time here. Those loans is another interesting way too, because you make these short-term, more like a bridge loan. You make this loan, and then that's another way. But it always surprised me that, when I heard this news about Australia, it's like one of the things that I think would complete it for Uphold is that when I move fiat, if I connect my bank and I move it and I buy it, like if you still buy XRP or any other coin on the Uphold, you still got that delay. And it's like that instant sort of settlement too. Like that's another sort of a thing on the consumer side. I know they have it figured out on institutional, but still, like for my bank to whatever exchange I'm using, sometimes they'll credit. The cool thing about Uphold is they credit you right away. They lock in the price, but you wait that 5-6 days, whatever it is. Sometimes it's longer. I feel like is it Flash Effects that gives you that? Is that the one in Australia where it's more of an instant sort of a pay?
Well, and that's because whatever I don't remember the name of the Australian program, but they basically have a faster payments settling, last mile settlement system, just like Europe, the tip system in Europe, and whatever they're doing in Mexico. So that's why. That's what's needed everywhere to take that bottleneck out, and then get Ripple in there with these exchanges that they can partner with, and then they're ubiquitous in that country.
Exactly. Jeff, what do you see? And we're gonna get out of here.
And it's all interesting. I mean, it's especially to that vein, from a retail perspective, investment perspective, if you're utilizing Coinbase, I say it's funny because Chip and I talk about this a lot. From a consumer perspective, they don't really care about all this back end, drama that goes on. From all of our perspective, this is the end all be all of what's happening. So kind of on its face, you go onto the app, you go onto Uphold, you just want to know that it works. You want to see immediate settlement. I want to see that, you know, I'm putting in my $1,000. I want to get immediate XRP, and I want to be able to take that XRP and move it. I don't want a 3 to 5 day delay as the ACH is working its way through the system. So there's some elements there. The offset to that, like on Coinbase, if you're holding X amount of value on their exchange, they're giving you immediate settlement. You know, or it's not, it's on the back end, it's not settled yet, but at least they're giving you immediate availability to those funds. You know, so if you have, I don't know what the threshold is. Let's say it was like $10,000 in total value on the platform. Then if you buy an XRP, let's say, it's immediately available to you. You know, so I don't know from a consumer, but that doesn't really help, you know, the back end conversation at all. That's just them saying you got X amount of value. We're just doing that as a customer service to help you, you know. So from a bigger picture, it's just another workaround like you're talking about, you know, to the face of the customer. But there's going to be a lot of that because at the end of the day, you know, we're seeing a normalization into mainstream adoption. And that's the game changer. You know, you have the utility, which is the normalization aspect of it. So if we're seeing more mainstream investment, you're seeing more mainstream utility and an ODL like scenario, everything changes. Until then, it's just, you know, a lot of talk, you know, and it's but that's where, you know, I believe that we're all at least thinking in the right direction, because here you have a RippleNet solution utilizing a digital asset, you know, for on-demand liquidity, and we're able to look at, you know, the strengths and weaknesses as it's rolling out over time. You know, that's exciting, you know, because that's the change.
Do you all think PolySign is going to be as big as some people think it is?
I think it could be. But it seems more institutional. Like, you know, for me, my initial thoughts of what PolySign was going to be, I still think the two biggest things going on right now have to do with, you know, custody. You know, you can't, like, if we're seasoned, we figured it out, we know how to use a cold wallet, and people are still keeping their coins on exchanges. My initial thought of what PolySign was, hey, they're going to come up with a really cool way for custody. But then the more I read about it, maybe is it more institutional? Maybe I'm missing something there.
I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of hype behind that, and people are saying that, you know, almost like how the Bitcoin people were so hyped about the halvening, and then everyone thinks there's going to be this big change once PolySign goes live. And I'm just kind of curious. You think so?
I don't think so. I mean, are they going to be a big successful company? Probably. You know, I did a video on that job posting. Some people are like, "Oh, it's not real. It's not on their website." I don't know if they filled it and then that one didn't get taken down, or if it was a faked one or something. Who knows? But I think what they're developing somewhere along those lines, and somebody tweeted on Twitter, a guy who was obviously a developer in the space, and like laid out what he thinks it is, and it's not far off, and it's interesting. I think they've got something. It's like the next Apple set of products or functionality that they bring to the table. I think it'll be something like that that's really innovative and kind of changes the paradigm of this is what the experience should be compared to what it is today.
In that case, it would be big, you know, because I still think the custody thing is, I mean, you know, I still know people, I heard of people, they get one, I put my thing in there, but then I erase something, then I typed it, and then they send it, and it's gone forever. And it's like, you know, how is Aunt Mabel going to go, Aunt Mabel, listen, come here, I'm going to teach you how to do this. Wait, what? Like when I was down in Chile, I set by the way, I set him up with a tip bot. I got to tell him, I don't know what is he going to do? He's down in Chile. How's he going to get it off there? I sent him a bunch of XRP, and he's like, how's he going to do it, right? So, you know, but that's the whole thing. It's like the custody thing. If you make it so that unstoppable, what was that? Unstoppable domains, where their whole concept was you could have you could be @Sam I am, right? And then, so you just type at it, and then it goes to you, and it knows all the back end stuff. But, you know, that's another, like a domain grab, where the ones that we wanted are the ones that I went to go get at Chip, and that was gone instantly, and, you know, whatever. They were all gone. But I like that people are. This is a fun time in this space. There's all people trying to figure it out. This doesn't happen very often, and we saw two big shifts in our lifetime. We saw the internet happen, and we saw the digital assets happening and blockchain. And so, one of the things we asked Alex Mashinsky, he said, the blockchain is great, but it's really slow. You're not going to be seeing, things will leverage the blockchain, but it's the slowest database ever built in human, history, right? And so he brings a good thing on there. One more word before we get out of here. Let's go around. Give me one or two words for 2020, Eddie.
For 2020, I think the space is going to get faster, and I think it's going to get more exciting.
Yes.
And I think that we're going to see some incredible new developments that we never dreamed about in a million years.
Wow. I like that. Sam, what do you got?
I think just greater adoption and like complexity in terms of all the MoneyGram stuff, what they're putting together. I think that's going to drive a lot of adoption.
Nice. Jeff?
I got nothing. No.
That's honest. That was my line.
Yeah. Growth and adoption. I mean, that's what it's going to be about.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of exchanges too get picked up. Huge,
consolidation. Yeah.
This consolidation is not going to be any big. This isn't a big secret or anything, but I think you're going to see exchanges. I mean, big exchanges like Coinbase and Binance, or Binance buys Coinbase, or I think you're going to just see some. Those are the type of things that I think are going to be really surprising.
Or a bank buys them, right?
Or a bank buys them. Yeah, absolutely.
Or they buy a bank.
Yeah.
They buy a bank. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those are the kind of big moves I think we're going to see now in the next 12 months.
Well, especially right now, given the current economic situation, there's a lot of great buys out there. So a lot of these tech companies that they might want to buy, we're going to see a lot of buys taking place. And it'll be interesting to see how banks are doing, through this and to see, it's going to be interesting. It's a great point.
Yeah. Another thing I think that we shouldn't overlook, I just add this real quick. Daniel Vogel talked about how the transaction fees were not enough to keep his exchange alive. And ODL is really making all the difference in the world. I think that's going to play a key role here, especially if we don't, if we get a bull run soon this year, that's out the window. If we don't, I think there's a lot of exchanges that are struggling because of this long bull run and not a lot of activity.
Long bear run.
Bear market. That's
right.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome if we were in a long bull run. I was
like,
what
glimmer of hope.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm going to take that one, and I'm going to take the innovation and good, exciting things. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you for being here. You can always look down below to check out onthechain.io. We have another channel. Check that out. We do short form stuff. I want to really thank Sam who's got an amazing channel to the light boats, and of course Crypto Eddie, who you guys are legends in the space. We're always blessed by your presence here, and we thank you for coming in here and have these engaging talk. And boom, just like that, 120 went by like that, bam, and a snap of a finger. So thank you guys so much for being here, and I think that's it. Jeff, you got anything?
We're out of here.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.